Hi guys, my name is Jonathan, and John asked me to kind of help you guys to kind of get a better understanding of how to draw animals, and just in general, understanding how the a animal works, and you could use this to eventually design your own creatures, make them more believable creatures. So I kind of just want to start off by my intro to my class, just to kind of give you a basic idea. So I have this is from my brainstorm school, and I want to show this to you guys because it kind of talks about the same thing. So the frame and the function foundation is always going to be the same. So no matter what type of animal you're encountering, the understructure, it should also be the same. When we're only talking about vertebrate animals, that's animal that has a backbone, animal that has internal bone construction, unlike insects. Okay, so these are mainly just mammals, reptiles, birds, that has these type of structures. So notice how this is a tiger and a lion skeletal structure. Underneath structure, it's almost pretty much the same. Same with birds, and same with reptiles and mammals all together right here. You can see that they still have pretty similar understructure. When it comes to how different they are, it's when they have different environments that is adapted to a different situation. So for example, right here, I have this in here. This PowerPoint is the mountain goat and the antelope. The mountain goat is actually related to the antelope. It's just only because it looks like a mountain. It looks like a goat because the way it's designed in his environment. And his environment is this rocky Alps type of environment. So it has this design of a goat, but it's actually more related to an antelope. Okay, so it doesn't, makes the sound of a goat, doesn't have like, the goat traits, but it just looks like one because it's adapted to a similar situation. Same thing with the tiger here and the snow leopard here. The tiger and snow leopard actually genetically are very similar, comparing to tiger and a lion. Okay, but it's because they live such different environments that their body structure is completely different. One has shorter legs, longer arms, more fuzzier fur, okay, sharper nose. One is more into the jungles, okay, especially this one, the Indian tiger, where it's more leaner, okay, and it has like stripes. It has different body structure, more taller to get more bigger prey. So outer structure is very different, but the internal structure is very much the same. So I want you guys to have a mindset that when you're talking about animals, they're all pretty much has the same blueprint underneath. And so I'm gonna focus today a lot on horses, and maybe we'll get into like a big cat, just so you could get one or two, to have a strong understanding of these two animals. Because once you have a good understanding of one, like a horse, then you could use that and use the horse as a blueprint for every other animal. So I'm gonna show you. This is from my animal drawing class, and I just want to help you guys have a much better mindset. Like, so when you see a different animal, you shouldn't freak out like, oh crap, it's another species of animal. You should almost start thinking more like, oh, this is like a big person. It's like a bigger, stronger person. It's a skinnier, leaner person. It's a fatter person. It's a skinnier person. You should start thinking more in terms of that, because underneath they're all pretty much the same. Okay, so here's an example of horse, dog, elephant, and bull. And notice how even though they're very different animals, they still have a lot of the same understructure. The neck, the arms, the legs. Okay, they all have really similar structure, even when it comes to the elephant and the bull. So start thinking about them as more related than separated. And I'll send this to John so then you guys can also have it as well. But these are just basic standard intro stuff that I sent to my students in the beginning of the class. And secondly, I want you guys to focus, really understand. Oh, I'll bring this up too. I want you guys to understand these parts, which some of you guys probably already familiar with these areas, but then these are the areas that we focus a lot on, like the skull, zygomatic arch, where it's behind the cheekbone of the animal, okay, cervical backbone, thorax backbone, lumbar backbone, pelvic bone, femur, okay, tibia and fibula, heel, tarsus, metatarsus, and you have your phalange in the front. Okay, you got the scapula, humerus, okay, radius and ulna, okay, and carpus and phalange. Okay, phalanges and carpus means wrist, fingers. Okay, that's pretty much it. Okay, and I forgot to put in here metacarpus in here. Okay, so at least you should at least know these terms, at least abbreviation of these terms, so you know the parts of these. And I want to show you this really quick. This is the horse skeleton sketch I did, and this is a lion sketch I did. Notice how their parts is all pretty much the same, right? Like I showed earlier. The blue marks here are what I call landmarks, where these areas are very important that you always should remember. Okay, the landmarks is very important because the landmarks is where the muscles connect to. Okay, and so we're gonna use landmarks. Okay, we're gonna use landmarks, and we're gonna use basic shape and mass to construct our animals. Okay, because your armature and your basic mass gives you two very important information. It allows you to find where the muscle is connecting to, and also allows you to find where the general mass of the muscle is. Okay, so understand these areas. So the upper part of the skull, okay, landmark. So that's very bony. Okay, not a lot of muscles covering that area. Okay, zygomatic arch and the cheekbone area right here, it's going to be pretty bony. Jaw and tip of the jaw is going to be really bony. Okay, notice how the cervical backbone there's any highlight right here, so keep that in mind. Okay, now thorax backbone, the top of the thorax crest, especially on prey animals, is going to be very prominent, and it's going to use that a lot. Okay, on the side you have the scapula, okay, and the scapular crest in the middle. You got the tip of the humerus and tip of the elbow, carpus, your wrist, okay, metacarpus, knuckles, phalange. Okay, at the end you got the lumbar. On the side of the pelvic bone, you got the ischium and ilium on each side. Now the hip bone right here, you have the very tip and the very end tip. Okay, now the femur, on the outer side of the femur, you got the landmark right there. Coming down, you got the knee bone right here. That's gonna be your patella. That's gonna be part of your landmark. Underneath it, you have the tip of the tibia and fibula, and that's also gonna be your landmark. Your heel bone is gonna be another landmark, and your toe knuckles and your phalange down here. So these are very important to remember. Keep in mind of these points. Okay, these are areas that we're gonna allow us to help us create our basic shape mass and also create our armatures. Okay, lion right here. The only main difference that you will see in the lion is the pelvic bone and the thorax area. The thorax area right here, your landmark, you're not gonna really utilize the backbone crest right here. You will mainly use the crest of the end crest of the scapula right here, where because it needs big range of motion, it needs to grab onto stuff, so it needs bigger space right here. Like us, our thorax crest is very, very short. Okay, so this allows room for mobility to grab onto things. So when we draw them, we're going to utilize this landmark the most. Okay? Rest is all pretty much the same. Down here, zygomatic arch, front, jaw, okay, elbow, carpus, phalange. Okay, these are all pretty much the same. Pelvic bone is going to be a little bit different because the pelvic bone of a big cat, because what we call them is hypercarnivores. So what hypercarnivores, they only eat meat. So they don't eat anything else other than if they're sick, they'll probably eat grass. But their 99% of their diet is going to be meat. So meats are easier to digest raw compared to raw vegetables. So you have a much smaller stomach content. So you have a much smaller pelvic bone. So comparing to the two, a horse pelvic bone compared to a lion pelvic bone, the horse pelvic bone is going to be much more bigger. But everywhere else with the landmark is going to be pretty much the same. Okay, so keeping that, well, when I start drawing, this will make much more sense. But I just want to kind of tell you guys this so you guys kind of have that in mind. Okay. Here's a quick example, just showing like even when you come to like the more exotic animals like the birds and the reptiles, you still have the same equal parts. You got scapula, humerus, radius ulna, carpus, metacarpus, phalanges. Okay, so you have all the same areas even when it comes to birds or reptiles. Okay, the main difference is reptiles don't have a elbow bone. Okay, same thing with a bird. Okay, they don't have a carpus anymore. What we call here is the carpus metacarpus, because your palm of the hand and your wrist is fused together. So that's the main difference on these. Okay, but they're all pretty much still have the same parts and still same underbody of like any other animal, like the big cat, elephant, cow. Okay. Let's see. So what we're going to primarily focus on, I'll break down the functionality of the bones for you guys, but we're going to focus mainly on simplifying our skeletal structures. Now, simplifying your skeletal structures allows you to draw from life. It allows you to go to a zoo to actually draw the animals, because you could get it down quick, you could get their gesture down quick, and they'll move, and you could still have an understructure, a blueprint for you to start building up slowly. Okay, so that's one main thing that you want to start thinking about. Once you have the basic understanding of the structure of right here, like where the actual bone movement structure is working, then I want you guys to really start focusing on simplifying your bone construction into simple gesture sketches like these wireframe armatures right here. Here's a quick example, just how allowing to make a make-believe creature relatable to a human audience, because ultimately we are still entertainment designers. We're basically product designers for in the entertainment industry. We're designing for a movie product or a game product, and our primary audience is still humans, so we still need to relate to humans. So when you're designing creatures, one thing that allows you to gain that relatability and add that 30% of relatability right off the bat without having to add any personality into the designs, and without having to add any personality to the creature, is the understructure of the bone. So if you can see the example right here, using basic skeletal structure, this alien creature has a resemblance of feeling of a cat. Okay, even though it has spikes and have this, so it creates a feeling that it's a cat-like feline creature. Always keep in mind, we're designing for human beings, and that's why we need to give that relatability, so that when the audience see this creature, they will see that it has a lion or a big cat, predatory, subtext. That's why using these, having understanding your bone knowledge underneath is very important, because it brings that relatability like to up to 30% right off the bat without having to add any more additional work. Okay, and of course, if we eventually design for an audience, like if we ever find aliens and then we're making movies for aliens, maybe this may just all go out the window. But we're still mainly designing for human beings. That's why design looks a certain way. That's why when a creature is made for more relatability, has more structure that's more relatable to the human eye. So this is just an example how to create a creature using the basic understructure of what it's real, and put it underneath, and so you have that strong subtext underneath. So this is we're not going to cover that today. You guys could do that eventually once you guys understand these basic function of animal knowledge. And if you guys are already taking John's Patreon, if you already taking his class, you should already know most of these, so bear with me on this. You have cylinders, squares, spheres, ovals. Now what we're primarily gonna focus on is these basic shape blockings of tombstone, cylinder, and box. When we build in ovals and spheres, that's when we're gonna cover more on the muscle outer structure. But we're gonna focus on cylinders, okay, boxes, cylinders. The main difference is you're gonna have tombstones right here, what I call this shape tombstone. Now, if you have Joe Weatherly's How to Draw Animal book, this is really focused on that. He was my mentor, so he taught me this type of method. So keep that in mind. If you also want to get more in depth, make sure to get his book as well. This technique is going to be a little bit different from his book. I will break it down to how I understand it a little more. Okay. Here's just another example of how using these basic shapes allows you to light your subject much more easier. It's just so much more easier once you know that it's a basic box, once you know it's a basic cylinder. I know, again, bear with me, I know you guys probably already know all this, but this is still very important. Having these understanding basic shape. Without understanding basic shape, there's no point in trying to light it, because light and shadow basically describes form. Okay, so and let's continue on. Line of action. Action is very important. It kind of helps sells the more subtext of the animal, what the animal is doing, gives a little more backstory without having to actually explain too much. And also helps sells the weight distribution, where your weight's gonna be, how you could sell the animal and make it feel more alive. So what I have here is a line of action going straight down, and the weight distribution is pressing all the way down to the front leg right here. Okay, so you have the weight and momentum going all the way down, basically showing the fact that it's about to reach down to grab food. Okay, right here the Allosaurus has a swift line of action and feels very springy, and is not pressing down that much weight. It's very jumpy feeling to kind of selling the fact that it's very agile. Okay, so line of action is very important, and you could really use that to your advantage, and also really helps sells weight in lines. Here's just another one as a rhythm. Always make sure to have rhythm in your animal drawing. Think of it like if you ever taken any environment class, it's pretty much the same thing. You want to let the eye move around the whole environment. Okay, there's micro compositions. You want to make the eyes move around. You don't want to make the eyes stuck in one place. So having movement, rhythm to your drawing is going to be very helpful to help sell in the whole animal. When we talk about putting anatomy on to the drawing itself, and this will make more sense. But here's some example. There's several examples like straight against curve. If it's too straight, it starts looking more robotic. Here's an example of having arches. Now when you have parallel arches like this, what happens is the eye gets trapped in the arch and it gets locked in. Okay, so you're not moving around the eye anymore. Your eye is getting locked in. Now you can use that to your advantage. Like for example, like Popeye's arm, his weaponry was his forearm, and so the design itself of Popeye was basically hone in on the arms. That's his like primary, selling point. That's his weapon. So his arm has that design where it's very football shaped. Okay, so it allows the eye to draw into that. So you could use that to your advantage, but as an animal, you want to make sure that you flow around because it'll just get stuck in one place. So here's some. This is a homework that I give to my students for the first day of class, to help them understand and help them break down what they're seeing using their references. So when using reference, I always try to break them down into basic simple information that I can remember, absorb in, and can use it when I'm in the field. So here's a basic tombstone cylinder box construction. Okay, and look at what the basic shape is helping you already. It's already helping you mark in the basic mass, but not only that, it's helping you mark where the landmark is. Not all the landmark, but the main points of the landmark. Okay, you got the tip of the bottom here, back tip right here, top tip right here, and these are the elbows, the tip of the humerus, and the knee, the pelvic bone. Okay, the bottom part, you got the carpus, you got the knuckles. Okay, so cylinder, okay, cylinder on the neck, on the arms. Okay, the head is a kite or a coffin, however you want to remember it. I usually just remember it as a kite. Okay, and we'll go into more detail about this later on. Okay, and here's some example I want to show you. Like if you already had Joe Weatherly's book, this is a little bit different. You have the tombstone. What I like to do is when I have the tombstone, I'll break it into half. Okay, once I have broken into half, it allows me to understand where the actual arm is moving. Okay, so but I'll still get the general mass. But you don't have to do that. You could stretch like what I did here. You could stretch the tombstone to fit, into the landmark area, and that also helps. And that also can help you have a more flowy mass instead of this one gets a little more robotic. But they all do the same trick that allows you to help you find your mass, and it allows to help you find your landmarks. And so these are the homeworks that I always strongly suggest that you go home and do this at home. Take a photo, draw over it, and break it down to basic shapes, and then it allows you to have a really nice information that's easy to remember. So when you go out to the zoo, when you go out to the field, it won't be so daunting when they're moving around. Okay. So let's start with a random let's take a photo and let's break it down. Okay, let's break it down to the basic shape design, and so we could utilize that design. So we have enlarge this so you guys can see. Right off the bat, we got the tombstone. We could definitely see very prominently right here. We have the cylinder for the mass and the stomach. We have the cylinder for the neck. Pelvic bone is actually facing towards us a little more because this back leg is moving backwards. So you got the box. Now I am adding more rounder mass. You could do this, what I do is once you have the box, I like to add almost like a little roof on top of it, like a round roof. This allows me to find the backbone and also the general mass of the pelvic. Cylinder. Now since this picture don't have the hooves, well, so I'll just draw it in. Now the reason why I want you guys to focus more on the horse is because this horse is an animal that's such a good blueprint for all animals. So if you know, really, truly do know how to draw a horse, all other animals will come very, very easily afterwards. So we got cylinder mass, okay, box. What I like to do is I like to draw sphere, and then I put a box on top of it, so it kind of gives us round box-like construction, so it's not so robotic looking. Coming down again, so let's draw a line up here. So this is how I break down remove or shorten. The animal into simple, easy to remember information. So when I go to the zoo, I can break these down and go, oh, okay, there's this tombstone mass, there's a cylinder mass, and there's a box mass. And I could just draw that because I could rely on what I know first before I rely on what I see. Okay? Because the main problem is you can't absorb information and release information at the same time. So when you're at the field, you want to already have those information ready to release instead of try to take in as much information you can and try releasing it at the same time. Okay, so this is like a preparation for that. So notice how I got all these maths just by breaking it down, and I'm going to highlight these landmarks. So we have, again, remember, landmarks is where muscles can eventually connect to. Okay, and this is what help us find our mass. Okay, I'm gonna use another color right here. I'm gonna draw the armature of the bones. And we'll go more into detail of this, but just want to show you. Notice how this 2 and 2 comes handy. Okay, having a basic mass, having a understanding of your armature, scapula, humerus, radius, and ulna. Okay, carpus, metacarpus, phalange. Understanding all these structures allows me to pinpoint where the bones is, where the landmarks actually is. Now I got two information. I have the functionality section, where I know where the actual pinpoints of movement is going to be, and it's also telling me where the muscle mass is going to be. Okay, we have the tombstone right here, has a really big muscle mass right here, really big mass right here, really big mass right here, and really big mass right here. Okay, so you have all this information already given to you just by breaking your photos down. Okay, and breaking down these references allows you to really understand, what you're truly looking at. Okay, instead of get too worried about boggled in details. So this is what I always want to really stress about: just understanding your basic mass and understanding your armature. It's gonna help you a big long way. So using this allows me to even draw the animal in different positions. So let's draw it, like, first off, straight off, exactly opposite from the image. So I'm starting off with the basic mass first, like this, but I always go in between. So I'll use my line of action, my armature gesture basically. And I'll go back and forth. Okay, so what I'm doing is basically marking where my armature of the bone construction is. Also help me find the general mass of the body. So the two main things I want to really focus on is really getting my basic mass and my basic bone construction in. When you learn how to really break down your references, you could really you could draw it from the other end. You don't really have to copy exactly from what you see. What you see should only be just for inspiration and minute information that will help you along, but it shouldn't dictate your drawing. So we haven't talked about the head, so I'll keep this head pretty simple. I'm going to come down and I'm going to draw in the cylinders. In this case, it's a little more cone-like than actual cylinders. Cylinder coming down, thick to thin. Now keep in mind, thick to thin is very important because your core, your heart, let's say the energy source is right here. So when you're drawing animals like humans, thick to thin, because once you get further out, it needs more energy to move around. So this is why also a horse has evolved just one hoof. This way they can move faster with less resistance on their leg. Let me flip this around. Let's add the stomach content. Okay, we have the cylinder mass. Now we add the stomach content that's right underneath here. And then cone out. Now generally I usually will, this part of the exercise is mainly just to help you develop this mindset of what you should be thinking about. Once more you practice this and the more you get comfortable with this, you could start drawing it lighter and lighter to the point that you probably don't need it anymore because it's already in your brain. But as for right now, it's probably not if you're new to this. So best to keep drawing these basic block-ins and armatures to the point you're more comfortable with these that you could leave them out. Okay, now there's some pointers and rules that I will always keep in mind of when drawing animals, when animals that have walking on their digits, like the horse right here. Your knee is going to be really high up, close to the body. Your elbow is going to be really high up, close to the body. Okay. Your heel bone will be higher than your wrist bone. Your head height is generally roughly 2.5 head high up to the tip of the thorax, right here. You're not gonna get that much time in the field to actually measure, so always like it's that kind of thing where you just have to keep drawing to the point like your hands stop betraying you in a way. But these are some pointers that it's very helpful. Like here, always going to be higher, always close to the body. And if you want you add stomach content right here, you're not going to see the other side of the knee. Okay, you're going to see the other side, the tip of the other side of the tibia fibula right here, but you're not going to see the other side of the knee. Okay, this may look like a knee, but it's not the knee. Okay, and right now it looks very bony. It looks, well, not very bony, and very robotic looking, right? It doesn't, still don't quite have the feeling of a horse, just yet. Okay, but before we do that, I want to show you some functionality of the bone construction. Okay, so here your scapula is going to be wrapped around the rib cage pretty tightly. Not too tight, it still has a gap. We have the scapula crest. And what I like to do is cylinders out, cylinder out. So this, if you see here, you got the ball joint that has mobility of much more wider range, and then you have a cylinder joint right here where it's purely for locomotion. It goes only up and down. Come down. We have the cylinder mass. We have the wrist bone. Knuckles. Okay, I'm going to bring this to the side right here. Okay, so this is the basic design structure of the moving horse. Okay, horse is a grazer, so it's allowing, it needs that long distance running mobility, and this design is made for that. Okay, and once you have that, then we could actually make it look more like bone. Here's the landmark of the tip of the humerus. And what I'm doing is I'm curving in. So because eventually we're going to give room for muscle there. Coming down, we will connect a cylinder socket to the cylinder joint, and that's going to be our radius mohna. Your wrist. When it comes to bones, we're doing thick on the joints, slightly thinner on the base of the joint, base of the bones, and then we're coming back to thick on the joints. Okay, so it's, you know how we say thick to thin? When you're focusing on bones, it's actually the opposite way around. Knuckles, finger, and I'm gonna just not draw the toe on the fingernails, but the tip of the finger. Okay. I'm gonna zoom this in a little bit more. You got knuckles. So what you have is 3 bones in the finger. Like yours, like your own finger, you have 3 bones. The cylinder socket at the end. Even though it's a round knuckle, you still have a cylinder, more cylinder-y socket. So that means it still has range of mobility, but then it's not to the point where like a human has the capable of. Cylinder socket, cylinder joint, and we have the tip of the finger. Eventually, once we have nails, it goes over. It's going to be much more clear. so let's go back to this. Let's do the back leg. Just bear with me because I really want you to guys to understand the functionality of these animals. This will definitely help you in the long run where you want to actually draw them from real life from the zoo, or from imagination, because it'll just be much more easier to really, use your reference, and much more easier to draw them from real life, because at the zoo they're not gonna pose for you. They're never gonna pose for you actually. So it's very important to always rely on what you know and the function and understanding the functionality of these animal structures. So right here I have the femur. Okay, I'm not gonna simplify. I'm gonna do it all at once on the back leg here, just so we could make it a little bit quicker. Don't want you guys to get burned out hearing me talk, for hours on end. So here's the landmark of the tibia and fibula. Okay, we're gonna add a triangle in front of the knee. I'm sorry, the actual knee, and we have a ball joint, a cylinder joint, okay, and we have the box for our ankle. Our heel is popping a little bit in the back. Knuckles showing in the front. Since this is foreshortened, we're actually seeing the top tip of the nail. Right here. Neck has what is called a cervical backbone, and I'm gonna armature this out so you could really understand what I'm talking about here. Cervical backbone has a slight S construction, not a huge S. Okay, it's not like a serpentine S. It's just very slight. So what I like to do is I like to break down the mass in triangles. And if you're talking about prey animals, they generally will have a pretty stiff backbone and a slight arch, like a bridge. Okay, when the weight distribution of a bridge is arched like this, it could support a lot of weight coming down. So same thing with the backbone, it has a slight arch to support the stomach weight that's pushing downwards on these animals. So I'm drawing the lumbar and thorax crest up here, okay? And because of this design right here, this is what's allowed us to able to ride them. If it wasn't for this, we won't be able to ride these animals. Pelvic bone, we're gonna simplify this, and we're just gonna draw a box, a flat out box that's angled slightly. And this is where your cone, your sphere socket, and your tail will be coming down. Okay, I'm gonna move this aside. I'm drawing these out just so I want you guys to understand what is in my head, like what is in my mind when I break these down. I'm really looking at the functionality of this, what the animal is really doing, so it allows me to really draw them from imagination. It makes it easier, much more easier. And that doesn't mean I don't use ref. It just means I'm relying on what I know more than just blatantly copying my ref. Okay, so having that basic understanding structure down. Okay, so this is what I basically, all these when I'm breaking down is all what I had in mind. But initially, once I'm in the field and once I'm drawing, I'm just relying on these simple armature structures. And this should already be what's in my mind. Like I already know there's a cylinder joint, sphere joint. I know there's a cylinder joint right here. And I know there's a knuckle with a ball joint with a cylinder socket. Okay. And I know that there's a carpus bone. I'll break down the carpus bone into two like this, so when it moves like this one, it will stretch. My tendon will be right here. Okay, so I'll stretch and elongate like your own wrist. So these armature gives me so much information already. I have the base. I know where my muscle mass is gonna be. I know where my muscle is gonna lead to. So these are the landmark areas where my muscles will lead to. So using those, I'm gonna let me mark the landmark. Okay, let me mark the landmarks here again, like here. So let's just start from the tombstone area. Okay, the tombstone area, we have the tip of the scapula, where that's the landmark muscle's gonna connect to. Okay, the bridge of the scapula. Okay, this little crest right here. Okay, so the trapezius the main part of the trapezius will be right on top of this tombstone. So already, what this side tombstone's already giving me is the general mass and where I could connect my muscle mass. Here we have a deltoid coming down to the humerus. On the side we have our tricep and what I'm thinking about, like the basic ovals that I was talking about earlier, pulling down, like adding like another triangle come here and holding on to the elbow. Okay, now there will be more mass, so it will be more rounder right here and coming down. Your bicep muscle in the front right here is going to be really, really small, and it's going to be underneath. And we're not talking about a lot of inner muscle structure, so we're just mainly focusing on the outer structure right here, because we're just going to focus on actually making it look. You don't need to know too much of the internal muscles, and that's like a whole days of demo. So I'm just mainly focusing on simplifying basic mass structures. So here's the external muscles, the flexor muscle. The flexor muscle is going to have thinner muscles, where the external muscle is going to be much more massive. So it creates a straight against curve naturally, without having to actually think where you should put that straight against curve. The muscle's already helping you dictate where that's going to be. On top, these thin muscles, these are the ligament muscles that are holding that S-like construction of the neck in place, so you don't see it. And the reason why that happens is this is when it relaxes. When it's stretching, the neck, when it's going down to get food, the neck's going to elongate and then stretch out the actual cervical backbone to a much more straighter, to stretch out to get to the ground for food. And these ligament muscle will hold on to that and stretch down. But when it's relaxed like this, you're not going to see the full length of the neck. What I'm drawing here is the brachial, the sternum, and the throat muscles. Underneath your tombstone here is going to be your pectoral muscles, and it's going to be bulging out. It's not like ours, and it's not like a cat's. So it does, because cats and ours are made morally for grabbing onto something, so we need more room there. For horses, they can keep bulging out in the front because they mainly use it for locomotion. The whole body is made for long distance running to get to another grass. Coming to the side right here, we have the latissimus dorsi, longissimus dorsi, which is the lower back muscles. Lat, you're basically like what I call the Bruce Lee muscle. With his huge wings, the Bruce Lee huge wings. Okay, so, but horses is very thin. Okay, our latissimus dorsi also help us to grab onto something and pick ourselves up. For a horse, they don't need to pick themselves up, so this is mainly just to help hold the ribs, to secure the ribs in place. Now you have your rib muscles connecting to each rib, and then intercrossing on top, on the end of the rib, you'll have abdominal muscles connecting down and coming downward. And you have your stomach muscles on the side. Here's the tendon, a very elastic tendon that's connecting to the knee. So femur, landmark, okay, landmark, landmark. Okay, so we have our tensor muscles, our glute muscles gonna be latching on and some over the actual femur muscle. And leg, forward leg muscles will be coming down, connecting down. Your bicep femoris is right here on the side, and because animals that walk on the digits gonna have this bicep femoris really strong and prominent. If you're dealing with humans or any animal that has a very low heel to the ground, that the heel is like very high away from the ground, your bicep femoris will generally cover a good portion of your calf muscles. So a horse calf will be almost tucked in from the bicep femoris. What you'll see a little bit of the muscle, and you'll see, but you mostly will see the tendon that's holding on from the calf muscle to the heel bone. In the front, we'll have our extended muscles and our flexor muscle, just like the forearm. And notice how adding these masks already gives a sense of thick, thin, straight against curve. Once you get down here, this is all tendon, so you're not going to worry too much. There is really not much muscle. There is no muscle mass in it. They're all just tendon here. This will be flexing a little bit more because the extended muscle is picking up. So using those armature basic masks already helps me find where all these muscle mass are going to be, and also where it's going to connect to. Okay, so let's get to the face. Let's get to the actual head. So I'm gonna shrink this down a bit so we get some room here. So a horse is it's a prey animal, so it has a more sideways looking eye construction here. Okay, so it has a tune, a kite shape on the top. Now, horses, because they need to look out for predators, so that's why they have a more sideways looking view. So their viewpoint is actually more like this. And they could see in they do have overlapping view, and they could see in 3D, but it's very far away. So the overlapping view, it's very far away. So they can't really see, like they have a really big blind spot in the front right here. And the reason why this is so they could look out for predators, and if they can't see the predators, they could use the ears right here to hear predators, and if they can't hear or see, they could smell the predators in the front. So straight against curve, you have more rounder on the bottom and more bony on top. And remember the landmark on the top of the forehead. I'm going to push this, and once you have the cylinder form, you could push this and then make it into a cone and push it a little more forward to give it a little more room for the eyes to be able to look forward. Cheekbone is protruded all the way out in the forward like a long rectangle here, just so they have a huge chewing muscle mass, a masseter muscle mass right here. Remember the zygomatic arch? You could feel this, like, so you could feel your cheekbone, and you feel it right between your ears and behind your eyes. That's our zygomatic arch. And same thing right here. This is the horse zygomatic arch. And this basically just holds the outer area where your temporal muscle, your bite force muscle on top, and your masseter muscle, your chewing muscle on the bottom. Now, it doesn't mean that the bottom part don't use bite force. It's just majority of for mammals, majority of the bite force muscle that's being used is on the temporal side right here. And because prey animals don't need to bite down and hold on to a prey, so their temporal muscle is pretty weak compared to the huge masseter muscle on the side. Now, we all have the same, we are pretty similar to a horse. We have a masseter muscle, we have a cheek pouch, okay, and we have a lip pouch in the front. Now, horse, they're a grazing animal. So what happened is their lip is much more flatter than, let's say, a gazelle or a sheep, goat, giraffe, where these are more generalists, and for giraffe they primarily eat leaves, so their lip is more oval than flat. But horses, they're grazing, and cows, um, bulls, buffaloes, they're all grazing animals, so their lip is very flat, so they could get closer to the ground and get to the grass. So that's why the horse here has a much more boxier lip construction. I will cone out the nostrils, and depending how you want to draw the nostrils, if it's like it's running and it's breathing in this case he is breathing in a lot, so that's why his nostril is much more rounder and much more prominent. But you got massive muscles, cheek pouch, and lip pouch. And it's basically just like us, but it's just more elongated. Because we're chewing animals as well, where we don't have that strong of a bite force. And what I'm going to do right here is I'm actually going to wrap the skin and the orbit muscle around the eyeball. Okay, and same thing, straight, more boxier on top and more rounder on the bottom. For ears, I like to cone out. And what I like to do is I open the flap outwards and the tip of it will go inside. If it's going like if it's not doing anything else and just being more natural, the tip will be inside, like pointing against one another. Now, if it's like looking, hearing out, then it'll change. Of course, it won't be exactly the same. Okay, so it will change around, but that cylinder tube allows it to move, like putting that cylinder tube down on top first, and then it allows yourself to actually move the ears around if you need to. But that's it. So this is just basically what I have in mind, what I'm figuring out, where I am, where my muscles connected to basic muscle structure, the basic outer muscle structure, um, and where, and because I have my armature and because I have my basic mass, this was relatively pretty um, um, easy to tackle because I have all those information put down to help guide me to put these muscles in the right places. Now, once you have all this, like, understand and practice much more better, then you get to then you'll have the much more easier capability to actually draw them from imagination. So usually, like, I don't do my personal stuff. I don't do that in depth, like where all the muscles connection is anymore, because I kind of already have it in my head. So what I'm all drawing here, I usually draw it pretty lightly, or I will already have it a pretty understanding where everything's already at, so I won't go too much in depth. And I'll just use the outer lines to kind of help me indicate muscle and bone structures. So what that does is, like, here, I basically just having more straighter lines, more smoother lines on the muscly areas. Again, I want to stress that if you really know how to draw a horse, this once you get the horse down, you will start really, really start realizing that every animal was pretty much the same, and it's very helpful once you have one set horse blueprint like this, and really will help you ease everything along when you're drawing other animals. And once you have this all down, then you could really start, implementing what type of style you want. Sketchy style, more gesturally style. But you need to understand, like, these forms first if you order to, actually stretch and bend them. So this right now is just like basic standard style. Just kind of like just clean it up, thick to thin lines. Here I'll just generally keep it pretty simple. Depending on what type of horse you have. Generally the hair will extend all the way down to the thorax crest. And I'm just fleshing out, adding skin. Selling all the mass and work that I did. You don't want to throw those out, you know. So keep that in mind. Like all these hard work that you implemented, these basic mass, where muscles connected to, you want to use those. Comb, really sell the mass. This is where you can like really use your reference, and then really, this is where I usually start really hone in on my reference and really look at my reference. This is the point where I actually um, use that reference to like see and like what I could use to push, um, to sell the animal. Your upper lip will generally be more pushed out, more prominent. That's why I'm kind of fixing this right now. And keep in mind where it used to be a cylinder mass, tendon will create this deep shadow. Put some ambient occlusion here. Really sell the nostrils. Knee. Oh, keep in mind again, remember, this is not the knee. Okay, this is the tip of the tibia fibula. Especially in this case, like your stomach will still be covering a good portion of the knee on the other side. Knuckles, finger, fingernails. Okay. Remember, when you cover them, the nails will be covering the middle part. Okay, so the actual fingernail right here will be covering the midpoint of the finger. So the nail, you still have this one extra joint in here, and sometimes if they want to really push this, it will look slightly odd because it'll look like it's slightly getting a little bit longer. Okay, because just keep in mind it's one extra joint right here underneath those nails. Now go on top. So I'm gonna put the finger push away, and I'm gonna add the hoof pushing away from me. And that's how you create a believable horse or animal drawing, or in this case, just the horse, um, without actually copying, but more like breaking down your reference and understanding how the reference work and what you're actually seeing, okay, and breaking those down instead of just try to copy for looking at the more instead of looking at the details, but look more at the internal structure and how it's and being constructed. And that's how I try to look at all my references. That's pretty much it. So I hope I answer your questions, and if you're still confused, just let John know, and he'll let me know, and I'll try to answer as much questions as possible for you guys. Um, but that's how I mainly keep um, get my animal drawings down. I always start off understand what I'm looking at and breaking it down into these basic shapes and use my armatures. And because all these vertebrate animals are all pretty much the same, you are always going to have a scapula. You're always going to have these cylinder structures. You're always going to have these cylinder joints. You're always going to have these ball joints in there to help you put them into different places in for a different animal. Okay? So always best or just always start to think of them more as same species and just different body types instead of freaking out and saying, "Oh crap, I'm have to draw an elephant." It's completely different, but they're actually pretty much the same. You're just drawing a different body type. So I hope this helps, and I'll try to get another one down. So I try to show you the predator. Um, but that's pretty much it. Thanks. Okay, so let's start. Let's do a predator this time. And let's do the same thing. Let's break down our reference here. Now for predators, for the head, I usually start with a box because they're forward-looking animals. Most predator needs a overlapping view of the world. So that's why, like us, our eyes are face forward. So this way, it gives us an overlapping view and allows us to see in 3 dimension. Now cats, dogs, predators, they need to use that so they can judge distance. They could judge how far away a prey is, so they could judge how far that to run, how close to get to the prey. For us, we need to judge distance so then we can see which branch to grab. Okay, and eventually when we evolved, we kept that 3 dimensional overlapping view of the world and allow us to grab stuff from distance. We could judge distance by just looking from our eyes. So predators have this ability, especially predators that use eyesight. So for this leopard here, I used a box so I could place the 2 eyeball socket right in the front. And we'll go over this a little more in detail, but this is how I break down. So we still have the tombstone. Now again, this time we won't use the thorax crest as the landmark. We're going to use the scapula because the thorax, it's short, and a big cat uses more of a grabbing motion, and they need to grab onto things, so they don't have the ability, well, not ability, like they don't have the same type of structure like as a horse. The horse scapula is more wrapped around of the rib cage, and it has a long thorax to kind of support weight distribution and to support the stomach weight. With predators, don't need, because they eat meat, and meats are way more easier to digest. So the pelvic bone's small. Their arms are more designed for, not for locomotion, but more for grabbing and pouncing and holding on to a prey. And it's a little more like us in a way. So I got the tombstone. Now if you're drawing it normally, like if you're drawing the cat just walking normally, this one's more pouncing, the tombstone will still remain pretty much the same, and your elbows can still be here. Now what's going on here is, actually I'll keep this on the side. This is where you really have to stretch and pull and move and break this into half. Okay, so let's erase this side of the tombstone. And basically you have your other side of the tombstone pushing up. So basically the tip of the scapula is coming up. And your elbow is high up. Okay, so you're bending your scapula, your humerus is coming up more. Okay, so it will change. It will alter when it does like more exaggerated move. But when it's relaxed, it's pretty close to the horse. But just keep that in mind that the main point is you still need to look for the landmark. So like tip of the elbow, tip of the scapula, tip of the humerus. So that 3 points right there will make that tombstone shape for you. Now it will, because this is a more like a pouncing like pose, you will have a little more squash and stretch like here. Knee still close to the body. Okay. Legs. Again, this is not the knee. This is the tibia and fibula. So we'll make sure that we have that. The knees are up here. So notice that's all still basic shapes. Basic cylinder, thick to thin. It's less thin now since we got all the fingers and toes. So here, coming down here, we're gonna get a flat rectangle. A longer rectangle. And the paws. Neck will be shorter since they use their teeth and mouth to grab onto prey. They don't want to break the neck and the prey gets too freaked out and as they're holding on. So they have a more muscular, shorter neck. Okay. Very agile body. Legs are designed to grab. And padded so then they could sneak closer to the prey. A cat's design is not really for speed. They can't run that long. But what they could really do really well is to pounce and stalk, and they're mainly built strictly for hunting. So let's start. I'm going to start out with the oval first, with the head. I'm going to go with the line of action. And same thing like the horse, I'm kind of just doing my armature and my basic mass all together at once. Again, if you have hard time doing that, just start with the armature first and then go to the basic mass. But this is if you feel this is more comfortable, go ahead and do that. So I'm rounding out some areas, but I'm still keeping very blocky. Okay, let me draw this over so you kind of see what I'm thinking about. So that's the box I'm thinking about. For the head, basically blocking the box on the side right here. So I'm drawing a side view, okay? And I'm adding a triangle for the brow ridge, like between your ear, your nose, and your eyebrows. And so what this box points out is the landmark of the eyebrow, your cheekbone, okay, and the tip of your jaw. Okay, so it gives you a really good point where you can find your eyebrows, cheekbones, and tip of the jaw. Okay. And for big cats, you want to go straight down. Now, they always look like this part is flat. It's because most of the time when you see them straight on the front, they're actually looking at you like this. So this doesn't get in the way of their view, but it's not flat, it's just pointed downwards. And because photos can flatten things, when you see photos like when a cat looking straight at you, it tends to look like they have a flat face, but it's actually because they're facing, their head is actually facing downward, but the eyes are actually facing forward. This allows them, so this muzzle doesn't get in the way from their eye view. Now, you still have the cheekbone. That means in behind you have the zygomatic arch. That means this side is your temporal mass, and you have a much more prominent. Sorry, this is your masseter mass. This top will be your temporal mass. Masseter mass again is your chewing muscle mostly, and your bite force is going to be on the top. In the front, between this gap right here, this is where your cheek pouch is. And the box right here, keep in mind, it's like a slight speaker box. So it's from thin and comes out a little bit. Don't do too much. Just like this side is your cheek pouch. You have the muzzle. I'm going to oval this out. And we have our lip pouch right underneath. And we're going to add the skin and hair of the lower chin. And I'm going to add the mass of the nose. And once you add this will blend in much more closer. But you need to block these in first, or else this will just end up looking flat. And we're going to add the skin. Ears will be up here, right behind the temporal mass. The actual air hole is going to be here, okay, right behind the zygomatic arch. So your whole air is going to be coming out up here. Now sometimes cats will relax their mouth and they'll open up, and this one makes it look like they have a longer. Okay. Actually, I'll do this. This to the side. So let's imagine like if and their mouth is relaxed, that means it's gonna stretch down, and their cheek pouch is gonna stretch out more and more relaxed. Their muzzle will be coming down more. Okay, so it will look slightly longer when you're drawing them with the relaxed mouth. Keep this in mind. Like when I'm drawing this on side, you're not really seeing this nose going all the way down right here. Okay? This bridge between here is not going to be that long. Okay, it actually comes down and goes up, and I'll draw that in the front view later. Okay, so that's pretty much how you construct a predatory head. Same thing with a canine or any other breed of cat. Canine is different because they're not use their, or wolves don't really use their mouth for grabbing on, holding on, unless you're talking about like a bulldog or those fighting dogs. For wolves, like they have long, but then the structure is similar. You still have the box-like construction. You still have the triangle on top, okay? And you still have a smaller box, just longer, coming forward. Eyes will still be here. Your eyebrows will still be marking this edge of the box. Your muzzle will just be longer as well. Your nose is not as triangle, but then more box-like construction. You still have your lip pouch, cheek pouch, massive muscle. And bring the jaw down a little bit. So it's pretty much still the same thing. It's just longer. So using this box, triangle, and smaller box construction allows you to actually form the head for most predators, actually. Let's come back to this. Got the basic cylinder mask. I'm gonna find the plane, which the plane is stretchable because it's stretching out. So I'm gonna make sure I do that. Cylinder. Now this time, instead of the carpus and the metal carpus here, it will be more box-like. Think of it like your own hand. So if I have my hand and I press it down on the ground, Okay, it will look something like this. Your metacarpus will look something like this. So same thing here. You have the thumb on the side of the metacarpus. So same thing, carpus, metacarpus, phalange. Okay, I'm simplifying myself. I'm just thinking at once as one whole shape first before I even break it down into several fingers. Okay. Now, because the weight, the line of action is coming down here and the weight is pushing down on this foot right here, your scapulas will be pushing up very high. Heel coming down, metatarsal, and your phalange. Okay. Going away, you got your knee, tip of the tibia and fibula right here. Your heel. So in this case, because it's foreshortened, so we got our ankle instead of the heel. Okay, so you still got your ankle joint right here, and your metatarsal, and your phalange. So let's mark our landmarks. Elbow, tip of the humerus, tip of the scapula, tip of the eyebrow, cheekbone, okay, jawbone, pelvic bone, okay, carpus, metacarpus. The top of your phalange is going to be very bony as well. Ankle, heel, ankle, knee, tip of the tibia and fibula, tip of the tibia and fibula. Okay, so these are landmarks. I'm going to shrink this down a little bit more. Stretch out this wider. So pelvic bone for predator, if you, from the horse one, remember the horse is like really big, right? Because they need to support weight for the stomach content, like this. Again, they're predators, so they don't need that big of a pelvic mass. So there will be a thinner rectangular shape, okay, for the pelvic bone. So you don't need to draw it that wide. Okay? It's really relatively thin compared to the horse. Let's merge these two together. Okay, so I'm going to draw over again the bone construction you still have the neck. Okay, in this case it's stretched down a little more, so then you're not going to get the S-like construction as well. So when it's stretched out, it does have a little bit of length. Your scapula, scapular crest, remember that's going to be your landmark as well. Humerus bone, humerus landmark. Now the radius and ulna are more separated here for one main reason, is to able to twist, so they're able to twist to the side, not all the way around like us, but twist to the side so they could grab onto a prey. So in a way, their arms are pretty similar to us. Okay, they're more bonier, and they have more mass because they need to grab onto a prey. So they don't get as wide of a range of motion as like ours. Okay, so your radius and ulna will not be fused together like the horse. It will be separated like ours. And this is for shortened, so it does look a little more shorter on the humerus right here. Okay, so I want to show you this part, the paws. So once you get to the carpus, you can still keep it pretty simple. Carpus is just a wrist bone that's going to be like multiple wrist bone right here. Coming down, you basically have 4 fingers in the front and a thumb on the side. Remember, they have total of 5 thumbs, okay, like a human, not like Disney cartoon when it's only 3. Okay, so remember there's 4 in the front facing towards you, and 1 on the side near your thumb. Okay, I'm going to draw a side view here to kind of give you a general idea. So your carpus, okay, and then your metacarpus, your palm of the hand, coming down to your knuckles. They do have this extra set of bone that's popping out to kind of support when they're putting there's like an extra padding right here, but you don't need to worry too much about that right now. Okay, so you have the metacarpus coming down. So this is your knuckles. We're going to push forward on your big finger, and then we're going to come down. Okay, and the very tip of the finger is going to be the different one comparing to like our hands. Okay, so that is basically, so your tip of the finger kind of went up and the nail went forward. And your padding, the main padding that you see in cats, the one that's like this big padding right here, that is right here. Your smaller padding right here is basically these 4 smaller ones is coming down. So you still have pretty bony top. So what happens, like when it's in relaxed mode, your claws will not be shown as much. It will be very, very light. Once you add skin and fur to this, your claw is going to be very hidden. You're not going to see it. It's only when it's actually stretching and really using the claws, that's when it'll come down, and that's when you actually see the claws coming forward. Okay, and when this happens, you will see the actual bump of the finger. Okay, so keep that in mind. You don't draw the claws out, okay, when it's walking. You don't draw it when it's running. Okay, it doesn't do this all the time. Okay, it's only coming out when it's running. Oh no, when it's actually grabbing onto something, when it's stretching out its paws. Okay, it's not gonna show it when it's running. It's not gonna show it when it's walking. Okay, so keep that in mind. It always will look weird. Try not to end up drawing like the tattoo drawings of big cats where even they're just walking, they'll have these like big protruding claws coming out. Okay? It'll just look like a bear, or it'll just look like a dog. So keep that in mind when you pause right here. I'm going to draw the metacarpus fingers. And I'm going to draw the finger bone. So what I usually do as an armor shirt, I'll just almost draw like a divide symbol. Just so I can get a general idea where the paw direction is going. When you want to construct bone construction, this works too on the box. Your eye socket. Now your canine. Okay, so it's very easy to block in your skeletal structure in that box as well. So these marks is very important. You could build a skeletal structure using out of that, and you could build the mask using out of the same thing as well. Femur, pelvic bone. triangle on the side. Okay. Coming down, cylinder joint. Same thing like the horse. Tibia and fibula. Coming down. Ankle. Heel. Metatarsal. Phalange. In this case, we will shift. Let's shift this pelvic bone coming down like this. So the cat is doing a slight contrapposto. Tip of the tibia and fibula coming down, heel, ankles, metatarsal, phalange. Ribs. Cervical backbone. Okay, so you don't really need to draw all these out, or if you're just drawing the animal. Again, like the horse, I'm just kind of showing you guys this just so you guys get the idea what's underneath. We'll turn this down so you guys will. I'll give John all this like in layers, so then you guys could like flip through them, however you want. So once we have that basic understanding, sorry, let me go back. So this scapula on the other side, it's relaxed and it's stretching down. So you're not gonna see, it's kind of getting messy here. Let me erase all this. So your scapula is coming down, and your humerus is also coming down as well. And your raised ulna will be coming out forward. That's why your elbow is like all the way down here and stretching out your pectoral muscles coming down right here. So there is a lot more stretch comparing to the horse, because the horse is more rigid to support weight. They're mainly to more flexible. There's more flexibility and more grabbing motion, so you will get a little more confused here. But then if you rely on your landmark here, everything should be fine. You should know where like your elbow here is. Okay, your elbow, tip of the humerus, and if you find those, you should be generally okay. So let's start with the head. We have landmark. I'm going to draw the whole eye in here lightly. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to wrap around the eye with muscle and skin. cheekbone on top. So this line of the end of the box will give you that triangle to draw out your muzzle. And we're gonna add that mask on top. Okay, so the nose mask. For nose, is in the front, it's basically like a chisel heart shape. And if you notice, like there'll be like, it's almost like this. Let me draw the side view. Like that. Cats and dogs have this type of design structure, especially on dogs. Right here. Just so they could take in oxygen and they could smell things by smelling in, and the air comes out to the side. Okay, that's why they have that little pouch like, not pouch like, this extra negative space right here on the side. Sorry, my dog's sorry about that. My dog. And then we're gonna come down and we're gonna draw our muzzle on our chin. Because they are forward-looking animals, you will see the other side, like especially in this angle view, you will see the other side of the cheekbone coming out on the side. Lip pouch. Cheek pouch. Your whiskers will be on the side right here. Let's do a little more relaxed. Normally you won't see all this because it's all going to be masked. So like if it's more naturally, it will just be like this. You'll see like a little bulge right here, but you're not gonna see the actual shape that I'm drawing here that defined. Okay, this is all gonna be covered in skin and fur. Remember, like this part is mainly just skin and fur. If you're actually drawing the skull itself, there's actually pretty angle and flat. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That's not really a chin. Okay, it's just skin and fur that's kind of creating that look of a defined chin. Straight and round on the bottom, and because they have pretty prominent eyebrow, there will be a shadow like kind of covering. Oh, and keep in mind when you're drawing big cats, they don't have a slit pupil. Their pupil is round. Okay, you're only gonna get that in smaller predators, the slit pupil, and usually big cats, because they're larger and they don't need that split eye view to look above them like us. So they don't have the vertical slit eye view that you see in geckos or smaller cats. And so big predators, big cats, they don't have that kind of design structure because they don't need it. Ears, I block it out. It's almost like a rose petal. I draw out the base, and then I flip them open. And then once I get that, then I could really draw in the mass, like the actual skin mass of the ear, and I could start adding fur underneath afterwards. And this, it's a side view. So you're seeing the side of the ear. So once you have that, you could kind of blend this a little more. So I'm just zooming out to see the whole animal because I kind of focus a little bit too much on the head. So now I'm drawing the tombstone, blocking the tombstone in, and I'm gonna do a separate layer and I'm gonna draw out the muscle structure. We have trapezius coming up, again supporting a lot of the mass on the side of the tombstone. This is where it gets a little bit tricky right here. You're not gonna get as simple. It's not gonna be as simple as the horse anatomy right here. Your deltoid is actually split, so your scapular crest right here, it's gonna have 1 and 2 deltoids. Okay? On the side right here is still going to be your trapezius. And it'll be more similar to us, where you could really see So I keep saying trapeze is the tricep right here. Trapeze is right here. The tricep. So you will have mainly 3 muscles right here. You will have a little really thin muscle in here, but I kind of show it, but you probably won't see it, especially in this ankle. You probably won't see that inner muscle. So you just mainly need to worry about this 3 right here. And then connecting up, you got the extender muscles. There will be more and a little more complex because you're dealing with each individual fingers. But you could kind of simplify yourself and think of it as one whole mass as well, like the horse. Back, we have the flexor muscles. Again, it will be more thinner on the back, more rounder in the front. So you will have more straight against curve, like more rounder and more straight. Pectoral muscle, stretching down. Your brachial, come down again and go over your tip of the humerus right here. Same thing with this one. Come down, go over, and then we have our extended muscles. And our inner extended muscles coming down. Masseter muscles. Temporal muscle. Oh, sorry. I got this confused. The temporal muscle and masseter muscles. Sorry, keep getting that confused. So T on top and masseter on the bottom. Again, in the back, you will have your latimus dorsi, your longinus dorsi, your rib muscles, and woven in, he's got the ab muscles on the side. Your stomach muscle will be on the side right here. You still have the tendon. Now, depending if you're drawing male and female, usually the penis is right here, or it's not going to be shown right here. But depending if you're drawing a girl or boy. It's more prominent if you're drawing a horse than a cat. They're more hidden. So, tensor muscles coming down, glute muscle facing upward, bicep femoris ankle, and these are all your tendon coming down, supporting your fingers. I'm going to draw in blue right here, just kind of help you simplify. So usually just think I sometimes think of oval masses. To find where my round areas is and where my straight area is. So that's pretty much how I basically do the same thing, use a basic mass and find my landmark, and I basically connect my tricep. Right here is my tip of the scapula. My trapezius. Okay, it's all leading here, coming here, connecting to a landmark. Okay, so look at all the muscles all connecting to a landmark area. Okay, so that's what I always use. Again, what we talked about on the horse, basic mass, armature, and landmark is very important, and then it allows you to really able to find where to actually have the muscles latch on to these structures. I'm gonna tone this down and where's my label? Okay, there you go. I'm gonna again keep in mind I'm drawing all this out, but this is what I have in my head. Once I kept practicing these, this is how I develop a kind of like a visual library in my head. So when I go out in the field, I don't have to draw every part of the muscle. I just draw basic lines, line control, and to get that general mass. I tend to want to make this part more, like the bottom part, a little more soft. You will have like slight kind of like fur breakage because of the claws, so you can will see a little bit of triangle, but it won't be sticking out. I like to give a little more harder edge of line above here, just so it could feel that boniness of the finger and give it a little more rounder on the bottom. And since this is squashing right here, so you will get squash right here. And because the skin squashing here, you will get a little more mass. Okay, so right here, you will get a little more mass coming. Knee pop, tibia and fibula pop. Again, keep in mind, heel will be taller than your carpets right here. Okay, so if this isn't an angle, but notice it's still taller, still higher. Okay, so you could, oh, this is flat. Generally, when you paw, like the two will be the more prominent ones, and the two outer ones will be pushed back. So this is going away, so I'm probably just going to see the top. And there you go. You got a leopard. I'm gonna close this one completely. And so patterning, you want to use a basic shape that you blocked in earlier. And what basic patterning just to help sell all that hard work you did. You know, so all these like patterns, like notice how it's wrapping around like the cylinder form. Rosette for leopards are generally, you have like kind of like 3. Sometimes it's a little more oblong, more stretched out in certain areas. We had 3 and 1 more orange in the middle. Now it all depends on the type of cat that you're drawing. They'll have different shaped rosettes, so just kind of look at what your species you're drawing. Like cheetahs will have a little more smaller rosettes. Clouded leopards will have huge rosettes. Whisker is gonna be, you're gonna have some whiskers on top, like your eyebrows, and on the side. Just so they could judge, like whiskers are designed for cats, so they could judge the distance between a head and the body, so they can know exactly where to grab onto a prey's neck to suffocate them. And big cats, even though big cats have huge, strong canines, they don't actually break skin on these tough, big animals. They will actually grab onto it and then clamp onto their neck, so the blood doesn't get to the head and they'll, pass out. Where smaller gazelles, they will puncture it, but mostly when they're hunting bigger prey, they only use that canine to clamp on. It's not like a saber tooth where they actually slice open the throat. So nose, like, kind of marking it lightly. And I'm wrapping around the cylinder form basically. Notice how there's a flatter shape right here? That's like the side of the tombstone. So don't just like add it flat on, okay? Like this part of the drawing of the animal is to sell, just adding more selling point of all the work that you've done. Okay. It's generally just to kind of sell the form of the animal more defined by adding these patterns in. If you lay it completely flat, it's just gonna flatten out your drawings, and then all that work that you did was just kind of go out of the window. Keep in mind, like all the stuff I'm telling you right now, it's mainly just for practice, to kind of be more self-reliant in drawing animals. Of course, like once you have this understanding, you could, use it to your advantage, and when you're doing like production work, when you're doing like professional work, you don't have to do it like every step by step like this. But at least when you're doing practice, when you're studying, it gives you like a good mindset. Because like normally, if I was doing this as a professional work, I probably won't like take my time and like draw every rosettes on here. It'll take forever. But as a practice, it really helps you like train to see like all the understructure that you've been building up, and see how you could sell it just by adding these rosettes. I'm gonna stop here for the rosettes. I want to define more of the form. Just simple hatchings. Just kind of sell the form and pop in some shadows. Okay. But that's pretty much it. Hope this helps you guys. Again, if you have more questions, just let John know, and I'll try to answer some questions for him. If you guys have any more additional questions. But thank you for watching, and that's it.